have to stop arriving at the same time like this everywhere we go. We arrive at the same time.
Is that right?
I
You just got here?
just pulled in. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very good.
Very excited about tonight. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I thank you for making it all happen. You're the guy who made it all, so thank you.
I'm just excited it's happening. Come on.
On April 6, 2013, Bruno Sammartino once again entered Madison Square Garden as the headline attraction for a sold-out show. As the cornerstone of sports entertainment for much of the 1960s and 70s, Bruno sold out the legendary venue a record 187 times.
Now yelling, Bruno, Bruno, Bruno. Bruno, without a doubt, the greatest champion we've ever seen.
Bruno held the World Championship for 4,040 days, more than any other individual in sports entertainment history. And longer than Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and John Cena combined.
Once again, it's great to have you back in the Garden.
Thank you.
Sammartino getting a voice of approval here from the fans in Madison Square Garden.
He sold out Madison Square Garden 187 times. Everybody in the world knew who Bruno Sammartino was.
Bruno Sammartino was the man. Bruno was Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, Hulk Hogan, Brock Lesnar, all rolled up into one.
This capacity crowd chanting Bruno as he's done for so many years.
The winner and still the World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion, Bruno Sammartino.
To sell out Madison Square Garden, it's amazing, and it's
great.
You know, 188 now, right? 188.
No, keep it out. You guys make me feel.
Did you see the shirt? Did you see the shirt?
Yeah,
Have you seen the
I've
shirts
seen a picture of it.
We put out. I'll get you a whole bunch of them. But like on the shirt, it says sold out Madison Square Garden. 187 times it's crossed out, and it says now 188.
Despite his legendary status, Bruno stayed away from WWE for decades, before finally accepting the Hall of Fame accolades for a career that almost never was. In July 1943, Nazi forces occupied much of Italy.
I remember as a little kid hearing about La Guerra. La Guerra means the war. But we didn't know nothing because where I come from, in those mountains, there was no communication.
But Bruno's small town of Pizzaferrato soon fell under Nazi control.
We were sleeping. My uncle was pounding on the doors, hollering my mother's name. And he was saying, Emilia, Emilia, Emily, that's my mom's name. In other words, get the kids and gotta get out. We gotta run, we gotta run. And we started running. They said that Vallarocca was the place to go. This was a mountain that would take about 24, 25 hours to get to the top. And that's what we did. And those of us who got there, we were the ones who escaped the Nazis at that time. Those who didn't get out quick enough because they didn't realize what these SS troops were about, they were all executed.
With his father working in America, Bruno's mother was left alone to protect her family. In the mountains above their town, Emilia Sammartino would show her son the true meaning of sacrifice.
To survive, my mom would make that climb down that mountain. She would go behind our home where was a latch on the door that she could get in. And so she would come there with a little sack and she would try to take as much as she could as far as potato, or wheat, whatever she could get her hands on. And then she would make her way back up that mountain. And it would take 2 days to go and to come back. In the winter, when it would be so bad, we went as much as 4 or 5 days. We just survived on snow and snow alone. I never remember a day when we weren't hungry. My poor mom, one time she was captured, and when they capture you, they would have you enslaved, and then they would execute you. My mom knew that, and she knew that she had those kids up that mountain. I don't know how she did it, but she escaped. Another time when she came, they spotted her as she was leaving, they started shooting at her, and they hit her in her shoulder, and she nearly bled to death, but she still made it back up that mountain.
But as the war continued, Emilia Sammartino and her children were once again faced with certain death when 2 German soldiers found their hideout.
There were 2 of them, and when they finally made their way up to the mountain, and they lined us all up, and the guy was actually setting up the gun to kill us, and I wouldn't look. I had my head tucked on my mom's rib-like, and she had the arm here, and she had my brother and my sister there. And she tried to comfort us. I have a hard time with this. So we started to talk about it. My mom had us on the side, and show you the courage she had. She knew what was coming, and she kept talking to us. She said, "Don't be afraid." She said, "Soon we're going to be in heaven with God." And says, "And we'll be in a beautiful mansion. There'll be no more hunger, no more cold, and we'll be happy ever after, and no more suffering. But everything's going to be beautiful." A lot of our guys that were with the Allies, they would always come back, 1 or 2 of them, to check on their families. On that particular day, a couple of 2 brothers saw what was going on. They were able to overcome these 2. They knifed them to death.
German forces in Italy have surrendered unconditionally to the Supreme Allied Commander.
When we did come back in town, they were carrying me because I was that deathly sick. Everybody said I was going to die in a day or 2, and I didn't die. You know, I lived. And 3 years later, we made our journey to America. When we came to America, my dad's working in the steel mills, and he bought this house in this section of Pittsburgh where we were one of the only Italian families. And I was almost 14, and I was 84 pounds. And these kids used to just beat up on me and my brother. And I fought back, but in my weakened condition, I didn't no good. I always got the worst of it. And one day, a Jewish kid named Maurice Simon, he felt sorry for us. He said that he would like to take me to the Young Men and Women Hebrew Association. And I saw these guys lifting weights. To me, they really looked good. The first time I went there, man, I couldn't pick up feathers. You know, I was so weak, I couldn't pick up nothing. But I had a feeling in my gut that I found something that was really, really going to make a change in my life. And the healthier I got, the stronger I was getting, the more drive I got. I started wrestling there too, and I fell in love with both sports. Within 8 years, by 1958, I was 275 pounds. I set a world record. I did 565 pounds on a bench. I did 755 pounds on a full squat.
Bruno's focus in the gym had paid off, as the once scrawny Italian immigrant successfully transformed himself into one of the strongest men in the world.
You know, I'm a big admirer of yours,
Believe me, every movie you've done, I've seen, and I used to tell everybody, I said, my God, I knew this guy in the 60s when he was a champion bodybuilder. Now he's the biggest movie star in the world.
Well, he was the judge. You were the judge.
Yes, I was.
Several times.
Yep.
Several times,
and then me, you, and Colombo.
That's right, yeah. It's really funny, because I was standing up there with Franco when we were competing in the Olympia.
Oh, yeah.
And I said to Frank, I said, "What's going on over there?" I said, "Look at this judge, he's bigger than we are." I said, "There's something off here." I said, "It's a weird place, America." I said, "The judges are bigger than the Mr. Olympia competitors."
No.
Yeah, exactly.
While working construction in Pittsburgh, Bruno's passion for weight training never diminished. His feats of strength yielded local fame and ultimately the beginning of a new career.
Because of all these awards and achievements that Bruno was making in weightlifting, he was put on a local Pittsburgh television show, a talk show.
Then it just so happened that a guy by the name of Rudy Miller, who worked for Capital Wrestling, and he happened to catch this. And he said to me, "I'd like you to come to Washington, D.C. and meet some people in the wrestling business." I said, "What can I make?" I wanted to help out at home because we were really struggling. And he said, "You could make as much as $35,000 a year." To me, that sounded like a fortune because now I'm a construction worker and I'm an apprentice carpenter and I was making $2 an hour. So when he said that, I thought, oh my God, I can really help. And that's how I got started.
Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to National Arena and your All-Star Wrestling Show under the promotion of Vince McMahon.
Vince McMahon Sr. led the Capital Wrestling Corporation, one of many regional territories that made up the National Wrestling Alliance. Capital controlled the industry in the Northeast, including two of its most important cities, New York and Washington, D.C.
The first few months, they started me out in small high school or little places. I started out that for 2 months.
When he was on the card, he might be in the opening match when he began. All the wrestlers usually stay in the dressing room until it's time to go on, but not Sammartino. Sammartino was out watching every match and trying to learn different things from different wrestlers. He was completely dedicated to wrestling. He wasn't going to be satisfied to be second best.
Bruno was experiencing some early success in the ring.
Bruno flattened Fred with a flying drop kick.
But his hunger for greatness and desire to provide a better life for his new family would lead him to a new land of opportunity.
The wrestler said to me, Bruno, you ought to try Toronto. He says, Toronto is dead wrestling-wise, but that's the place to go because he says, if you can give it a spark, you'll be the headliner.
With a fresh start in Toronto, Bruno Sammartino would begin his ascent toward the top of the industry.
When I went to Toronto, I called up this Italian newspaper and I talked to the head guy and I said, I'm from Italy and I can do stuff that not too many people can do. I says, I would like to show you because I'm going to be wrestling here in Canada. So I went over and that day I really outdid myself. I did 6 reps with 500 pounds on a bench press. I took 700 pounds and I did like 4 or 5 squats. A day later, the headliner in the sports section of the Italian newspaper, he says, è arrivato il Sansone Italiano. That means the arrival of the Italian Samson. The Maple Leaf Garden had been dead, and I mean dead. But each week, more and more, and people were coming out to see, who is this guy? You know what I mean? They saw on TV, they read about it in the paper. I started doing so well that eventually I wrestled guys like this. We started selling out the Maple Leaf Garden. I went to Montreal, we sold out the Forum. I went to Winnipeg with Gene Kaninsky, and we sold out there. And man, I was riding high in Canada.
While Bruno was thriving north of the border, Vince McMahon and Capital Wrestling broke away from the NWA and formed their own promotion, with veteran Buddy Rogers as their inaugural champion.
But there's one thing I want everybody to know, and that is, to a nicer guy, it couldn't happen.
They gave the title to Buddy, but Buddy was kind of on his last legs as a wrestler. He had some health issues, some heart problems.
Rogers' age and injury were a concern. And with an eye towards the future, Vince McMahon Sr. would reach out to the industry's biggest rising star.
Vince heard all the success I was having. He said to me, I think you belong in New York. He says, and we can do some good things here in New York.
Madison Square Garden is sacred ground. If you make it to Madison Square Garden, and that's all you ever do is wrestle a preliminary match in Madison Square Garden, your career has been made.
There's a certain magic to Madison Square Garden. And my dad in his New York accent always said, Vinny, the Garden will always be the Garden, meaning nothing else will take its place.
Madison Square Garden, this is the most famous arena in the world. I want to be given the opportunity to see how far I can go. I said, I want Buddy Rogers. I want to be the top guy. And he said to me, we'll do it. But Rogers, in my opinion and the opinion of many, many guys of my era, he was not a guy to be trusted. If he thought that he was going to lose the title, he would have never showed up. He would have faked an injury.
Buddy and Bruno didn't get along. Bruno was the new kid on the block, and Buddy saw Bruno as a threat.
But I do know one thing. I won't run away from him. I'll run at him. I'll put the title and the belt on the line anytime that they come up with the price that I want.
Vince McMahon and Toots Mond, they worked together. Toots Mond came up with the idea, and he said, let's let the SOB believe that he's gonna beat you. So the word was that I had been offered $3,500 to get beat with the figure 4 leg lock. And they made Rogers believe that.
On May 17, 1963, nearly 20,000 fans packed Madison Square Garden to witness history.
When the referee gave us the instruction, I told Buddy to forget about the deal and all that. I said, do your best, because I'm going to do my best. He looked at me like, what's going on?
That's Bruno. You want me to prove myself? You got it. He won't what? I'll show him.
When the bell rang, I came across like a bear. I hit him, I hugged him, and I put him up here, and I said, Buddy, give it up or I'll break your back. I never heard Buddy say a word, but the referee signaled me to let him go, let him go. And I thought the roof in the garden was gonna pop out. And the people went absolutely wild.
Hey, Bruno, real quick, I just want to show you something.
Oh my God, they showed it to me. I couldn't believe it when I seen it. This is the, this is the belt that 50 years ago in Madison Square Garden, when I wrestled Buddy Rogers, this is the belt that he was wearing, and this is the belt that I wore for a period of time till they decided to make a new version of the championship belt. And then this thing disappeared. And I seen pictures of myself now and then with this, but I always wondered, I wonder what happened to that thing. Who got it?
You know, it's funny how things happen, Bruno. I said it to you when we first talked on the phone, right? Madison Square Garden this year was like it was written, like it was meant to be, and as that was happening, this came along, and here it comes, and I mean, it's all just, to me, it's like a little piece of a puzzle that all just, we got all the pieces at the same time. It's really great. So I just wanted you to see that.
My goodness, how about that, the world champion?
As the new world champion, Bruno headlined shows across the Northeast, but nowhere was the new champion more beloved than Madison Square Garden.
The universe revolved around the world's most famous arena. The biggest box office attraction at that arena was Bruno Sammartino.
In the Garden, as soon as I'd leave the dugout to run toward the ring, that whole place used to explode chanting my name. I swear, it used to give me goosebumps.
The theme music for Bruno Sammartino at Madison Square Garden was 21,000 people all chanting, Bruno, Bruno.
It was magic. Bruno, as soon as he stepped into the ring, the crowd was on their feet.
From Pittsburgh, the heavyweight champion of the world, Bruno Sammartino.
You know, the Northeast is full of Italian, and he had a following.
He was the face of WWE. He captured the imagination of a huge Italian population. I don't give a damn if you were an Irishman, a Swede, Polish, black, white, green. You like Bruno Sammartino.
As you hear the crowd respond, they love that man, Bruno Sammartino.
I was visiting some family members in New York City, and I saw Bruno, and I was mesmerized on how powerful, how quick he was, and he was just something that everyone would want to be like if you're an alpha male. That was my first encounter with Bruno.
The fans just related to him because he was a blue-collar kind of guy who worked hard, and his story resonated with the people. Although he was bigger and stronger, he was kind of like everybody else.
People believed me to be a really strong, powerful guy, and so they believed in me. They also saw me as the old country guy. I was a modest guy. I wasn't a guy who was fancy. I never wore robes, or I just wore a pair of tights and boots. And I think that a lot of ethnics, they saw me as one of their own, coming from the other side and making it, the old American dream.
Bruno epitomized the American dream. He's the genuine article. And when you're that genuine, you know, people sense that. Like, that guy's real.
People say hitting a baseball is the hardest thing in sports. Connecting with fans is the hardest thing in sports in a way that they want to come to pay to see you every single time. Bruno Sammartino did that better than anybody. He had a connection with that crowd. This kid came from nothing and turned himself into this. And man, if I can have the dedication and the heart and the passion and the drive that he does, I can succeed. They latched onto that. He was their hope.
Bruno Sammartino.
As a national star and adored by millions, Bruno Sammartino was an ambassador for his industry.
You never saw me without shirt, tie, because I wanted to represent the wrestling game and I wanted to look like the champion. I would never touch alcohol if there were young kids around. I always used to be very conscious about stuff like that.
The impact that Sammartino had on the culture was enormous. He was an enormous celebrity on the streets of New York or Boston or Pittsburgh or Philadelphia or anywhere in the Northeast.
Good luck tonight, Bruno. Thank you. Don't worry about sports. Thanks, Bruno.
As his title reign extended into the late 60s, Bruno Sammartino continued to sell out shows across the country. But his fame was not contained to the United States.
When you're wrestling out of New York, you have an advantage.
The world's heavyweight champion, Bruno Sammartino.
Because it was the most famous arena in the world, we would have newspaper guys around the ring, and they would report in Australia, they would report in Japan. It gave you worldwide publicity. Japan, Hong Kong, places like Singapore, the Philippines. And it seems like anytime they advertised that Bruno Sammartino's coming, there was this anticipation of, oh, we're going to get to see this guy.
Everybody in the world talked about him. The fan would leave the arena and say, you need to see this. He was that good.
When I went to Australia, I was there for 21 days. I had 21 sellouts. Every single day we sold out, and in many cases we turned them away.
Bruno's popularity grew. Bruno really earned his way into being a top guy. It took Bruno a lot of years to be able to build up this extraordinary following. But once it was built, wow, there's never anything like that.
I got to be friends with Frank Sinatra. When I'd go wrestle in California, in Los Angeles, I used to work out with Arnold and Franco Colombo.
You look back at old photos, he's with every celebrity, every sports star. He's standing there with his family having a private audience with the Pope. Everybody in the world knew who Bruno Sammartino was.
However, the years of defending the title across the globe were wearing on Bruno.
How long have you been world's heavyweight champion?
6 years now, and
My gosh, I think that's a record. I guess you're looking forward for a day off.
I sure am, and I'm glad that I got the day off tomorrow to go home and relax a bit and listen to my music and be with my 3 sons and my wife.
By 1971, Bruno had been the celebrated champion for nearly 8 years.
The schedule was really rough. You'd leave from New York to Bangor, Maine. Well, the next day you had to go to Washington, D.C., so you'd have to drive around 600-700 miles. You wrestled that night, and then you had to drive 250 miles to get back to New York City because the next day you were in Sunnyside Gardens in Queens. After that schedule, every night, I was hurting so bad, I had a meeting with Vince. I said to him, Vince, I'm really hurting bad. When I go in that ring, I give it my best, but I don't feel that it's good enough. I don't feel that I'm giving the people their money's worth. I said, you gotta get somebody to take this thing over.
Very good. Very good, not good enough. Hard but not hard enough, I guess.
Can we get a quick picture, Bruno and I being together? Okay. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Ivan.
All right. I don't know why I want to take a picture with this guy.
Took the title from
He was always nasty with me in the ring.
Yeah.
The word was going around about Bruno was hurt. He needed some rest to recuperate. Weighing 290 pounds, the Russian strongman, Ivan Koloff. To be chosen with that, wow, I said, what an honor, what a thrill.
We started out having a great match, a lot of high spots and arm drag. And then when it came time for the finale, I was coming off the ropes and he caught me with a knee. And I went down and he picked me up and he gave me a big body slam. And then he jumped over the top rope and he came across my throat and my chest. Then boom, I got pinned, 1, 2, 3. Well, Koloff got up and I'm laying there and I don't hear a sound. I really thought that when he came down on me so heavy as he did, that he did something to my ears. So then Arnold Skolin came in to me and he said to me, "Are you okay?" And I heard him perfectly clear. I said, "Yeah." And when I tell you, you could have heard a pin drop, I am not exaggerating.
I can remember how quiet the people went. And I even remember thinking to myself, like, what's wrong?
In 14 minutes, 55 seconds, Ivan Koloff has just defeated Bruno Sammartino.
My first time at the Garden was on January 18th, 1971, to see Bruno lose the title to Ivan Koloff. And there were over 21,000 people in that building. And to get 21,000 people to be quiet all at the same time was an amazing thing, but that's exactly what happened. There wasn't a sound from the crowd. They were so stunned. It was the reaction of that crowd that told you about the relationship between Bruno and his fans, and in particular, Bruno and his New York fans.
People were crying. People were saying, "Bruno, you'll get it back. You're our champ. You'll always be our champ."
When I saw that kind of reaction and those emotions, I felt so depressed. I sat in that dressing room for almost an hour before I started making my way out. I really, really felt bad because I made the people feel that bad. You know, it really, really bothered me. But I thought, oh man, I'm gonna go home tomorrow. I'm gonna go home and be with my wife and my kids and my mom and dad.
He's very close to his family. He's completely dedicated to his mother and father and wife and the children. That's his entire world.
There we go, all done. That wasn't so bad. For the first time, I took off about 3-4 months. Those were the best times. I cherish that because you can never make up all the time when you're away for as long as I was. It gave me an opportunity to give my parents something. I took them on vacation that they had never taken in their lives, sent them back to the old country 2-3 times. And this was the biggest thrill for me because it gave me an opportunity to do something for my parents and to see my mom especially so proud. This was the greatest part of my career in the business. I swear I felt like I was in paradise. I thought life couldn't be better.
While Bruno enjoyed the benefits of his reduced schedule, Pedro Morales won the title from Ivan Koloff in February of 1971.
Although Pedro was doing sellouts at Madison Square Garden, a lot of the other towns were not drawing the way they did when Bruno was on top.
By late 1973, Vince McMahon Sr. saw another Sammartino title reign as the best way to improve business.
Vince said to me, look, tell you what, you come back, we'll just work you the major clubs for 1 year. We'll go 1 year, and then we'll have enough time to prepare somebody else to carry this load. I thought about it, and I said, well, that's fair. So we come back. Stasiak beat Pedro Morales for the title. I came back in the Garden on December 10th, 1973, and I beat Stasiak.
Here we go, the roar of the crowd for Bruno Sammartino, one of the greatest champions of all time.
Vince kept his word. I'm wrestling 2-3 times a week. The business was real good again.
Bruno, at that time, became an unbelievable star.
They love that man.
1 year went by,
Not being called the living legend for nothing.
then 1 year went to 2, 2 went to 3.
And it's all over. And the fans go absolutely berserk.
And on the 4th year is when I broke my neck.
Bruno was the top guy. I did 2 or 3 TVs, and then all of a sudden, I'm in Madison Square Garden.
And Stan Hansen heads up all the way against the legendary champion Bruno Sammartino.
Stan Hansen, he's a big kid, 310 pounds. He was supposed to catch me with a scoop slam, as we call it, coming off of the ropes.
Hansen now, Sammartino, neck first down to the cabin.
Instead of slamming me, threw me head first right down on that mat. And when I hit that mat, man, I felt like a bolt of lightning went through my body.
The referee stopping the match because of the severity of the laceration across the forehead of Sammartino.
I come back into the dressing room, and Vince Sr. came in, and he says, "You hurt Bruno." And I was, "What?"
Bruno had suffered a broken neck.
They took me to a hospital in New York City, and all I could think about was my folks, because if they heard that I was in a hospital with a broken neck, I really believed that they would have had a heart attack and died. I said, I got to get to Pittsburgh. I said, I don't want my parents to find out what's happened here. And I'll tell you what, that trip was the trip from hell. I was in so much pain. My doctor said, "You stupid son of a bitch." He says, "What is the matter with you?" He says, "God Almighty." He went on, he was furious. He told me, he said, "You came within a millimeter, being paralyzed from the neck down."
Bruno has a compression fracture of C6, the cervical vertebrae. In other words, it's a bone near the base of the neck. This is usually received from a direct impact from the top of the head.
My brother and sister brought my parents over. I said to my mother especially, I said, "Don't be afraid, I'm feeling fine. I'm good."
And what do you think your mom and dad would have thought of this night?
Oh, please, now you're gonna make me cry. My father would be very proud, and my mom would say, all those sacrifices were all worth it.
That's why you're the champ.
Thanks.
It was his upbringing. I think when you're a kid and you don't know where your next meal is coming from and you're starving, that's tough. Wrestling isn't as tough as not knowing if you're going to be alive or not the next day.
Despite his broken neck, Bruno miraculously returned to action just 2 months later. The world champion was determined to fulfill his duties at the top of the card.
Bruno knows nothing other than to give it his best. But, Bruno carried that territory for a long time.
But even as he continued to deliver as the industry's top draw, it was clear his legendary career was coming to a close.
Graham for the cover, 2, 3, a count, it's over. Graham on his way back to the dressing room, apparently victorious.
Following his loss to superstar Billy Graham, Bruno began a transition from in-ring talent to ringside commentator.
Well, Greg Valentine's going strong as ever, Vince. People may hate him, but he's a tough competitor.
But not before headlining the company's biggest show of 1980 at Shea Stadium, before a crowd of nearly 40,000.
Shea Stadium with Bruno Sammartino and Larry Zbyszko had drawn $500,000 gate, which is unheard of at that time. If the crowd got their money's worth, I'll tell you that.
It turned out to be so huge. I thought, boy, what a way to go out. This is my dream come true.
I want to take this time to say thank you for having been so great to me, so wonderful for so many years. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I will never forget you, and may God bless all of you.
Bruno, thank you very much. Bruno Sammartino, wrestling's one and only living legend. Thank you very much.
Following Bruno's retirement, Vincent Kennedy McMahon took over the family business, expanding and reshaping WWE beyond traditional programming.
We hope to be recognized as the premier source of sports entertainment in the world today.
I now pronounce you to be husband and wife.
I started noticing changes that I didn't particularly care for.
Body with a rock. Oh, he hit Orton. Mr. T connects. T spins around left hand. Orton over the top rope. Mr. T has clean house.
The wrestling part of it changed from the kind that I was used to for the 25 years that I was in the business.
Bruno was more of a wrestler's wrestler. And so there was so much entertainment poured into the product. I think Bruno didn't like the product for that reason.
Back with more TNT, and as you can see, they're continuing to work on Adrian Adonis.
I figure changes do come, whether I like it or not.
Would you please welcome wrestling's living legend, Bruno Sammartino.
I just became very bothered, and I complained about it a little bit. I said, I don't want no part of this. I said I want out.
Bruno walked away from WWE for good in 1988. As the years went on, the company's former cornerstone remained unhappy with the controversial product.
Now all of a sudden they're doing interviews and anything and everything goes.
I don't give a rat's ass if you own the WWF or not.
The entertainment itself was sometimes not very PG, and that really turned Bruno off, which was to a certain extent the mirror of what was going on in society at the time. I represented the product, of course, because it was me creating it.
There was a rift between Bruno and Vince for a long time.
Since the inception of the WWE Hall of Fame in 1993, the longest tenured champion had been a noticeable omission. That is, until another former champion reached out to the living legend.
Vince decided that New York, New Jersey was the location for WrestleMania, and I started to think about Hall of Fame, and the opportunity is there to induct the Babe Ruth of wrestling. Once we were pretty sure that Hall of Fame was gonna be at Madison Square Garden, it kind of solidified the thought for me, and I went to Vince and said, hey, I'd like to reach out to Bruno, and he just kind of laughed and was like, and I said, for Hall of Fame, and he was like, well, good luck with that. Bruno, it's Hunter, Triple H. I'm sorry? No, go ahead.
He says to me, Bruno, we would like you in the Hall of Fame. I said, I appreciate, you want to call me. I said, but no, I'm not interested. And he said, well, have you watched wrestling lately? I says, no, I haven't watched it in a long, long time.
For the 1,000th time, we welcome you to Monday Night Raw.
He says, we made a lot of changes. Then I started watching it, and I thought, that's great. Now these guys look like athletes. They move well.
And I'm loving this matchup. Look at the... Oh!
And I said, I'd be happy to come into the Hall of Fame.
Bruno, come on in.
Bruno, welcome home.
Well, thank you, Vince.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're looking well.
Those meaty hands, big neck.
An older face.
Well, don't we all have an older face?
But there's no complaints.
You look good. You look real good.
And you're looking very well as well. I hope you feel as good as you look.
Oh, thank you.
But anyway, guys are recording everything. I want to tell you right in front of this guy that we had our differences in the past. There's things I didn't like, didn't agree with. We're all entitled to our opinions. But I must tell you, and I mean this sincerely, that I'm so happy that everything's okay with us.
I am too, Bruno. It is a privilege to finally be able to honor you like this.
I shake
It
my
really
head.
is.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It is really a privilege. Something you've deserved. If anyone deserved to be in the Hall of Fame, you'd be at the very top of the list. And again,
Well, thank you guys for wanting me back. And
for a long time. And again, it's our privilege. Really.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very, very much. We're back.
Yes, we are. We are.
Well, thanks, good.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Thank you for everything.
I have the great pleasure of introducing Bruno Sammartino. And I'm so proud of him because he's such a great immigrant. Not only did he wrestle for these millions of people, but he brought so much great inspiration to so many millions of children. And so he has made such great contributions to this country. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the great wrestler, the great champion, the great Bruno Sammartino.
He's 77 years old. All these people are chanting my dad's name. That's pretty cool.
My. For a minute there, you turned the clock back 50 years. I almost felt like I was ready to run towards the ring. Brought me back to those days, and I thank you. I'm very grateful for tonight, for Arnold, for the WWE who sees me worthy of this honor, and the opportunity to have appeared in Madison Square Garden one more time. I'm very grateful for that. But most of all the fans, if you didn't come out and support me the way you did, I would have never become anybody. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you, and God bless all of you. Thank you. I thought that I acknowledged the people properly, not only the fans, but the organization and all. So for me, I couldn't have been more pleased.
With his induction in the WWE Hall of Fame, Bruno Sammartino's career had come full circle, selling out Madison Square Garden for the 188th and final time. It was a fitting tribute to the living legend.
To maintain that level of popularity for that long of a period of time, it's just a remarkable thing.
My dad was really, really proud of that. And really, really proud of Bruno.
Sammartino, house of fire!
Without Bruno Sammartino, without everything he did, there is no Hall of Fame, there is no WWE. He was that impactful on this industry. Without Bruno, we don't get to where we are today.
I don't really think you have a legitimate Hall of Fame unless Bruno Sammartino was in it. Bruno was that important to the history of our business, and I'm so happy that he's in it.
Bruno Sammartino was the greatest territorial champion and box office attraction in the history of sports entertainment.
But for Bruno Sammartino, his legacy and impact went far beyond the ring.
What I'm mostly proud of is what I've found out since I got out, because every time I make an appearance, people tell me, you were a great role model. They say, I wanted to be just like you. I started training because of you. I named my kid after you. I've had so many people that named their son after me. It makes me feel really warm inside to know that you had a positive effect on a lot of people.
He wants to be a role model for kids to say, listen, you can do this the right way. You can live life the right way and succeed. I truly believe that that is the fiber of who he is.
Thank you, Bruno. Thank you, Bruno.
Let's see it.
Let's see it.
Let's see it.
Bruno lived an extraordinary life, from war-torn Italy, hiding from Nazis, to making it to the U.S., to being the sickly kid who becomes this larger-than-life superhero to millions and millions of people around the globe. One of the most famous people on the planet at the time. When you say the American dream, is there any bigger symbol of the American dream than Bruno Sammartino? I don't think so.
I'd like them to remember me as a guy who always went in the ring and gave it the best he possibly could for the fans. I hope that they look at me and say that he was a pretty decent human being. That's most important to me. If they thought that of me, I'd feel awfully proud.